It's time for Windows Weekly. Paul Thurrott and Mary Jo Foley are here. Of course, they're back from the big announcement yesterday, Microsoft Surface Pro 3, and a very special guest is going to stop by, Mark Russinovich of Sysinternals fame. He's got a new novel. It's all coming up next on Windows Weekly.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Windows Weekly is provided by CacheFly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Windows Weekly with Paul Thurrott and Mary Jo Foley. Episode 363, recorded May 21st, 2014. The Neighbor of the Beast. Windows Weekly is brought to you by ShareFile. Enhance your workflow. Send files almost any size easily and securely with Citrix ShareFile. Try ShareFile today for a 30-day free trial. Go to sharefile.com, click the microphone, and enter Windows. And by Shutterstock.com. With over 35 million high-quality stock photos, illustrations, vectors, and video clips, Shutterstock helps you take your creative projects to the next level. For 20% off your new account, go to Shutterstock.com and use the offer code WINDOWS514. And by Carbonite. Whether you have one computer at home or several at your small business, Carbonite backs up your files to the cloud automatically and continually. Plus, access your files anytime, anywhere with a free app. Start your free trial at Carbonite.com. No credit card required. Use the offer code WINDOWS and you'll get 2 bonus months with purchase. It's time for Windows Weekly, the show that covers your Windows interests weekly. And there's a lot to say today. I'm sorry, I probably shouldn't have said that so loud. Somebody said, Leo, you always begin the show too loud, and we have quiet music starting, and then there's, of course, the matter of Paul's hangover. So I'm just going to talk a little more quietly. There he is, Paul Thurrott from the super site for Windows, winsupersite.com. Mary Jo Foley is also here. Can I speak more? Or are you just tired?
I'm just tired. I'm not hungover, thank goodness.
You're used to drinking heavily.
I am.
They're back. They're back from Rattle and Hum, where there was
I was taken to the woodshed.
Little bit of a party there. A lot of people at Rattle and Hum. Looked like it was a lot of fun.
It was.
It was nice.
Yeah. So the occasion, of course, the announcement of Surface Pro 3. I'm going to ask right up front, are you surprised? No Mini.
Yep.
Yes and no. I mean, I guess the thing I'll tell you now is that I have a source that's been incredible for years now, and got me a lot of that early information about the Xbox One and about the Surface 2 stuff. I had the whole Surface 2 generation of stuff, kind of queued up before it happened. He's been a good source of information about the Mini as well, and he knows the backstory about what happened there and all that kind of stuff. And he had cued me in that it was happening, and I knew all of the stuff they were going to announce around the Surface Mini. And about a week ago, he emailed me and said, "You're not going to believe this, but they just canceled, or they should say, actually not canceled. They just delayed Surface Mini again. It's not going to launch next week."
Wow. So you knew ahead of time it wasn't going to launch. So
here's the problem. I know from talking to the Surface guys that they're very sensitive about the leaks that have occurred around their stuff.
Yeah.
And so we have kind of a love-hate relationship, as you might imagine. And they've been very active trying to find those leaks. And I suspected that this was, in fact,
plant
misinformation. Attempting, maybe we'll tell some people some things, we'll tell some other people some other things.
And then we'll know who's leaking.
Yeah, I had decided with the Surface, what I'll now call the Surface Mini information, that I was not going to publish anything immediately because I didn't want it tied to any kind of a timing where someone might have found out about it internally. In other words, so I wouldn't get them in trouble. And
that's smart.
Yeah. And so I figured with this one, I really felt like there was a 50-50 chance this was disinformation or misinformation, and that regardless, it didn't make sense for me to write, hey, they just canceled Surface Mini, because I, A, didn't really believe it, to be honest, and B, obviously was trying to protect the source. And so it was very clearly a mini launch event. The wording that they used for the event was all about, a small event,
Apparently
Small
not.
gathering.
It was 12 inches.
Small gathering.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what do you think?
But I
happened?
also knew. So again, going back to the original Surface Mini stuff, I had also heard, hey, oh, and by the way, they're launching a second device. And I was like, really? What is that? And it was a lot less information about that, but it was going to be a bigger Surface Pro device.
And that's what we did see.
Yeah. And that's the one they ended up going with.
So that's really interesting. I forgot the invitation said small.
Yeah.
So very interesting.
Oh, it was absolutely common. It was. I'm sure there are people out there who think, oh, these guys were, were so gullible, and
Right.
And no. This thing has been in the can, since last year. It's been waiting to go.
And we should say a Mini would be an 8-inch version of the Surface Pro.
Yeah, 8-inch. And by the way, the interesting thing is, the big device they did launch, of course, has a 3x2 form factor,
Which I like, but we'll talk about that.
which I love as well, by the way.
Yeah.
The way that the Mini was described to me by someone who had seen it was that he had put an iPad Mini right on top of it, and it was almost identical from a form factor perspective. Of course, the iPad Mini is also not a 16:9 device, and so I actually believe that this 3:2 aspect ratio is what they were going to use for the Mini as well.
That makes sense.
Although I'd never been told that explicitly, but I think that's the case.
We'll kind of get into that aspect ratio because I think that's an important point. But just to wrap up the Mini.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of theories about what happened, and different people are doing different reports on why it got canceled. Bloomberg
Canceled or delayed?
Right. Bloomberg said, and that's a good question. Bloomberg says that it was Satya Nadella and Stephen Elop in the 11th hour who looked at this thing and said, you know what? We have no differentiation for this thing. Like, we're just another Me Too device, so we're not going to launch it.
Like the Dell Venue and
right. NeoWin just posted something saying they actually went so far as to make 15 to 20,000 of them, and they're somewhere in a warehouse. I don't know if that's true.
Well, Alamogordo is waiting. I mean,
there's room in the dump.
There is a big empty hole in the ground now.
There's a hole there. Or you give it away at the next build or something.
Yeah. I get to ask Panos Panay, who's the head of Surface. I kind of tippy-toed around this little and said, what do you guys think? 8-inch form factor still viable? And he said, we still believe there's life left in that form factor. So that makes me think they still could do it.
Yeah.
But,
I'm positive they plan to.
Me too. And the one thing that I thought when we were hearing about Surface Mini that never quite made sense was the fact it was going to run Windows RT because it was ARM-based. And we already know that Microsoft's not going to have Windows RT as it exists today continue. They're reworking the operating system and merging the phone operating system and the Windows RT operating system in some way so that will be a new SKU probably around the time of Threshold next year. So I was like, wow, are they really going to roll out a Surface Mini with this operating system and then next year
1 year
hey,
before they
this is
kind
the
of get rid of
system.
that operating system.
Yeah. It was just a lot of things weren't lining up. The whole date around, Gemini, which are the touch first apps, they weren't ready. I don't know. I was kind of like, wow, this is kind of a weird time to launch an ARM-based device. But we were pretty sure it was going to launch because our sources who've been
it
very
was going
correct
to launch.
in the past, right?
Yeah.
They all told us it was coming.
I'll add one more thing to this too. And you'll remember this. Obviously, it just happened. But one of the things that I think it was Satya Nadella said early on in the presentation that really struck me, to the tune of I was taking notes, and when he said this, I kind of stopped and looked up, and I was like, "What? That is a very different policy." He was describing Surface generally, and he said, "We are not going to compete against our OEMs." And I thought, that is absolutely not what Surface was about. It was, in fact, Surface is controversial because they are, in fact, competing with their PC maker partners, their OEMs. Surface Pro 3, the new one, is a fairly unique device. I don't think there's an example of a PC out there that's quite like it. And you could make the argument that they're kind of trailblazing a new product category, this tablet that can also be a laptop kind of deal. That is not the case with the Mini at all. I mean, the Mini would have had the same, kind of one-click, one-note access and all that stuff. But an 8-inch device that can be used as a note taker, there are a bunch of devices like that. And maybe that's the issue, that there just isn't enough differentiation And it's kind of a Me Too follower type product. And this isn't the right thing for them to be doing with Surface. And I actually think that this represents a major 180 from the original vision of Surface, which again wasn't done to be antagonistic, but very much was about competing with the OEMs, not to put them out of business, but to kind of show them how Microsoft felt these kinds of devices should be. And it seems like now the plan is for them to make differentiated devices that can sit in the market alongside competing devices that aren't exactly the same kind of thing.
That really limits what they can do. The OEMs are very creative and have there are a lot of them. There's a lot of different styles and form factors.
I agree with the second half of what you just said.
Well, maybe they're not creative, but how about you look at the Lenovo Yoga?
I don't know how creative they are.
Well,
I'll point you to the HP laptops that look exactly like MacBooks.
Yeah, well, that's another strategy. But but just the variety of the ecosystem means it's going to be very difficult for Microsoft to do something that is not already done somewhere, right?
Well,
right.
Well, even with the original Surfaces, when they talked about them, they said, we're trying to show the OEMs the way for high-end devices, for premium devices, because they felt like OEMs weren't competing well with Apple.
Right.
And they're like, they do really well in the mid-range, the lower end, and that we're happy with what they're doing there, but we're not happy with what they're doing at the higher end. And I think the Surface Pro 3 is another example of them showing that.
So you're saying that this HP Spectre that I just opened up, this is not, you're saying this is not an original design of any kind, that this looks a lot like, oh, it does, like a MacBook Air, just exactly, yeah. But it has Beats audio, so that's...
Yeah, so it's got that going for it.
That
well, soon Apple will too.
That'll be an Apple product, right?
Yeah.
They're gonna. I hope they can scrape that off. Let me just see if there's a little razor
By the way,
blade.
the kind of insane march to 16:9 screens.
This is interesting. Okay, well, let's talk 3.2 because that's very
interesting in that aspect of it. And by the way, that alone is enough of a differentiator in many ways, right? There are no 4x3 or 3x2 Windows mini tablets at all.
No. There's the only one the only device I know is the Chromebook Pixel, and that's 3.2.
Well, I mean,
and I love it
like
for
a
that
mini
reason.
tablet. In other words, something like the iPad
like
Mini.
Yeah, the iPads.
If you look at an
the
iPad
iPads
Mini,
are 3.2, right? Or are they 4.3?
Is 4x3, I think, or it's in there, but it's absolutely not 16:9. Like a Nexus 7 has a very tall screen
and
and
they're weird
portrait.
when you turn them sideways.
Exactly. I don't remember why we did this anymore.
For movies, for TV and movies, that's why.
No, sure, but I mean, in other words, it made sense that HD TVs would go to those aspect ratios, 16:9, 16:10, whatever. And then in the Windows world, we had Media Center, and Media Center was kind of optimized for 16:9 in one release, and then I think Windows itself was optimized for 16:9, probably in Vista, if I'm not mistaken. But I don't know that is necessarily optimal for what people do most of the time on a computer, especially given how our usage patterns have changed because of smartphones and tablets, because we use those devices for entertainment and consumption. And
nobody
I think
makes
more
a 3.2 or 4.3 phone, right?
No, because that wouldn't make sense.
Apple used to, but now the 5 and 5S are 16.9.
Yeah, right. So I think just given the way that PCs by computers are used, that maybe stepping back from super high, super widescreen displays is maybe the right move. And it's weird because I'm so used to them. I mean, I was using this device on the train ride home, and just regarding the screen, it's a little strange. It looks
takes some getting used to. I remember when I first got that Chromebook Pixel.
Yeah, it's like it's weird.
But Apple's always said, and I noticed Microsoft in the presentation pointed this out, it's the same aspect ratio as a piece of paper. It's kind of how you naturally work. Yeah. And so if you're document-centric as opposed to video-centric, it's the right
Which I think on a PC is how most people are.
Yeah.
So
and by the way, I'm sure a movie would look fine. I'll watch a movie on it.
It looks fine. You got bars. We're used to bars. That's not. I mean, even 16:9 has bars on Hollywood movies because they're not 16:9. Only TV shows are 16:9. Right. So I don't think that's. It's once I got used to it, that didn't bother me. And the truth is that 90% of what you do on and maybe this is the real story. In my opinion, the real story of this announcement is there really going back and saying we're going to be a laptop? Aren't they?
Yep.
Aren't they saying,
Well, yes and no. I mean, a laptop and a tablet. I when you
with
think about the
emphasis
Surface,
on the laptop?
They're calling
Yes,
it a tablet still. Like Pano said,
Yeah.
we're call it a tablet, but everything about it is a laptop to me. I think it couldn't have been more clear that the message was, you know what, everyone said laptops are going to die because they weren't good for anything except old school applications, and yet everybody's still using laptops. Maybe we should go back and make a laptop, but not call it one, because
especially in our market, because we're
right.
We're productivity tools.
well, actually, they quoted the Apple market. They said over 96% of iPad users also own a laptop. And we're pretty sure the other 4% just didn't answer the question.
No, I think that in some ways the failure of the iPad, one of the reasons the iPad sales might be slowing is, remember Apple when they positioned the iPad, Steve Jobs came on stage, said, you've got a laptop, you've got a phone, what's in between? Oh, that's this new thing. Right. And I think people have decided, I don't need the new thing. I got a phone and I got a laptop. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Do they need a hybrid like the Surface?
It's unclear. I'm a big fan of the separation of church and state. And I when I travel, I don't mind bringing like a mini tablet for a book reader, for a movie watcher. Rent movies or whatever. It doesn't weigh a ton. It doesn't take up any space in your bag. I don't find that to be too troublesome.
And does the Surface do that for you? Is it?
No.
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 But don't take that as some kind of a criticism. I mean, I'm not exactly the normal use case either. I think one of the things they're really pushing for with this version of the product is they're going after commercial sales, and they're kind of business customers. And those people have asked them for this kind of advice because what they have found, big businesses, enterprises, is that they are paying for devices for their employees, and they're paying for 3 devices.
Right.
And increasingly what they're saying is, can we just pay for 2 devices? I mean, we don't mind, we'll pay, but we can give you a thing, if we can give you a thing that does both.
But why do you not
better.
feel the Surface is adequate as a tablet for you? What is it about your...
Oh, no. So for me personally, so I've not really used it too much as a tablet yet, but it's just the way that I use a tablet. I use a tablet for those consumption activities.
Right.
Reading, renting movies on a trip, that kind of thing. Casual games, stuff like that. I just think the screen's too big for that kind of stuff. I don't, if I'm jammed into a flight and I'm in, cattle car out back and I have no room, I can pop open any mini tablet and watch hours of movies, do crossword puzzles, read a book, and it's no problem. I suppose this will work. It's just big.
But okay.
And then you could ask me why I don't want it as a laptop, because for me it doesn't work as a laptop.
It's perfect
Surface.
for everything is what we're saying.
Right. It doesn't work for me as a laptop because even though they made some really awesome changes to the kickstand and the hinge, the kickstand, and you can have more positions with the cover now.
It has lapability.
It doesn't have lapability. Nope.
Do you want lapability?
Well, you know what it is? I watched Mary Jo try this, and I thought I was kind of like a side view of Mary Jo sitting
I believe
in
you
the
laughed.
chair. Well, my initial reaction was, wow, her legs are really short.
That's mean.
They're not,
No, but
actually.
No, but they're not.
She's a
Actually,
long-legged gal.
No, the thing, actually, she's tall. And when you
Mary Jo,
watch
your
the other
leg's
people
too
do
short
the
to
same
box
thing.
with God.
I only saw one person, and I pointed him out to Mary Jo, actually, who could use the thing on his lap. And I think it was just because this guy had unusually long upper legs.
Oh, so you have to be like super tall.
I think it's super tall in a certain way. My wife.
It's
is
what
very tall,
you're saying. It's your thigh. You have to have
It is.
long thighs.
Yeah.
Right, and I don't
also-
actually have very long thighs, even though I'm over 6 feet tall.
The other thing
Everyone's
is
different, Leo. This is people all special in their own way.
So everybody's a special little snowflake.
I know.
So what
People
you're
are
saying,
to me, cross your legs and balance it on your crossed legs. I'm like, who uses their laptop
Stand on
that
your
way?
hands.
you're lapping it wrong.
Right.
You're lapping it wrong.
So it's the Surface is meant for people with long thighs.
Or you use it if you don't have the attachable keyboard and you just are using the on-screen keyboard, it works fine in your lap. But
It's a
For me, I
tablet,
wanna
but
have
that's
the
a
keyboard.
tablet.
So I just before we step back, I just want to step back from the cliff 1 second. We're not. It sounds like we're.
You
really
love this
criticizing.
device. You
I actually
love
think
this
machine is
device.
special.
Yeah.
It's the problem for the scenario that she's describing is that it is, of course, top heavy because the machinery is all in that tablet part, which is on the top, and so it's more of a precarious thing on your lap. I will tell you just an interesting side note from my trip home. I ride on the Amtrak all the time, and one of the problems with the Acela Express is that they often have to slow down because of other trains, or they are just running on track that they don't own and it's not very well maintained. And so often the thing will be sashaying around, and your laptop is sitting there on the table and it's jiggling around. And if you have a normal laptop, if you think about how that works, the top part of it is doing this kind of thing. It's like, and when you're looking at it, it's actually kind of annoying. Because of the way the kickstand is employed on this Surface Pro 3, on that train, this thing is rock steady. It doesn't move at all. And so my wife was next to me, and her Ultrabook is flapping around as the train moves. And this thing was like absolutely rock steady. And I thought that is, I mean, again, it doesn't impact everybody. I get that. But that's pretty cool. I mean, I thought that was kind of a neat thing because that's something I've experienced many times.
All right. Well, let's go through some of the things we like. Let's talk a little bit about this Surface Pro 3. First of all, Mary Jo scooped the price points.
Nope, I didn't.
You didn't. Somebody else did,
No.
but you re-scooped it.
Yeah, WP Central, I think, got all the price points right.
And and those have still not been announced. I mean, isn't today the day?
No, we have them.
They have.
Okay.
We got them all now. Yep.
Okay.
So
starts at $799.
right, that's the Core i3 with 4 gigs of RAM. That's the $799, and then it goes all the way up to $1949. That's Core i7, 512 gigs, and 8 gigs of RAM, the big boy. And there are a
By the
few
way,
price points in between.
This alone is notable because with Surface Pro 2, they did have various SKUs that were based around storage and RAM, but all of them had an i5 processor. And a lot of people complained to me, like, I don't mind spending almost $2,000 on this thing, but how could they not have an i7 offering? And so this version, for the first time, offers all 3 versions of the Core, the Core processor.
Yep.
i3 in the low end, i5 in the middle, and an i7 on the high end.
And what you get for that price, just to be really clear, is you get the Surface device and you get a pen. You do not get the keyboard. The keyboard's an extra $129.99.
It makes this a fairly pricey system.
Yes.
Although,
you think?
I don't know. This is what Microsoft says. And Leo would know this better than me. Microsoft said if you can find the comparable SKUs of MacBook Airs to these things, that they're in line with which is the target.
Haven't we been saying that MacBook Pros are pricey?
Yep, and that Microsoft's going after the premium market.
Premium
with
end
this.
of the market. These are almost identical to Mac prices.
Right. This is a premium product, premium price. They're not pretending it's a bargain product. They're not trying to go low. They're not competing with Chromebooks with this, obviously.
Right.
They're going after the high end. Yeah.
That's again to avoid OEM conflicts. You think?
I think so.
I do.
Stay out of the way of the low end.
Mm-hmm. Yep,
Yeah,
I think so.
and I think what they're hoping for too is big corporate buys, where people are saving money by buying them in volume, which is obviously something individuals can't do. So it's possible you could get a better deal on this through an ISV.
It's kind of nice because you can hide the actual price of these by not, by separating out the keyboard. But
but
is anybody
that's
going to buy this without a keyboard?
I can't imagine anyone doing that.
Will anyone buy a Kinect, an Xbox without a Kinect? I don't know. Maybe.
Well,
Yeah,
that's a little
maybe.
different though, isn't it? I mean, it's like buying an Xbox that can't play games. I mean, this is core to the PC experience. When you say, it's
Kinda
kind
neat.
of a strict.
What one? You each got one, right?
Yeah.
What did they give you?
They gave
It's
us
the i5, with 8 gig and I think it is. Is it 512 or
256?
256. They don't have a 512.
256.
So
Yeah.
there's
So
one.
that machine will cost $12.99 plus the keyboard.
Right.
That's
So you're
ridiculous.
talking you're talking $13.28 for that device.
Yeah, and by the way, I wouldn't buy this one. The odd thing about this to me is that this is not a true PC configurator type thing, right? I don't personally, for example, have need for a lot of SSD storage, so I would probably go with like a 128 gig.
How much does Windows
storage
use of that?
Just out of the box?
Yeah, I mean, like when it gets out of the box, how much of this is dedicated to the OS and everything? In other words, what's the free space?
Well, on my, I've installed some stuff, but I have 208 free of 232.
Okay, or 256.
Well, 232 is reported, because some of it's there was.
Oh, that's right. Okay, well, you got to include that. Okay.
Yeah.
So you have 208
but I've
total left.
Office, I've
so somewhere in 210, 212 out of a 256 gig drive. Well, that's a lot. That should be enough.
But when you go to like Apple's website or Dell's website or HP's website, whatever, for a lot of these systems, you can go in and say, well, I want 4 gigs of RAM is fine. 128 gigs of storage is fine, but maybe I do want the i7, and I appreciate that they have more options here than they did before. I still think this is nice, but I kind of wish you could mix and match a little more, and maybe that's something they'll I think they're still kind of dipping their toes here with PCs, obviously, right. But
they talk in the specs if you go down on.
They tell you right there, Leo.
Yeah.
Under storage.
The 128 has 96 gigs available, a little more than 96 gigs. The 256 has more than 211 available. So that's that's plenty. The operating system's not that big.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you do have to include the hidden partition, the restore partition. So that's plenty. And they do directly compare it to the Mac Pro, which I think is kind of interesting.
Right.
And the biggest differentiator is there's no touch on Macintosh.
Well, and you can't remove the keyboard. You don't have
better
keyboard
resolution
choices.
screen on the Surface Pro.
I'm going to be honest with you. The removable keyboard is for me a strike against it. I either want a keyboard or I don't want a keyboard. And it's flimsy. It's either attached or it's not. I never really bought into that detachable keyboard thing.
I honestly, I'm mixed on that. I don't think I care either way. The availability of color keyboards, I think, is kind of a neat thing. I think people like
nice.
that.
Yeah, the purple's beautiful. I love that.
Personalization type of thing. But.
Well, I guess I'm going to get one. I don't really need one, but would you recommend that? I mean, is it different enough from the other guys?
Oh yeah, I mean, we just got it. And I don't want to get too crazy yet. I'll
get crazy.
I'll use it. And
let's go crazy.
This is a very nice machine. I mean, I think this is very comparable from a quality standpoint to the best PCs there are. Like
the build feels
Lenovo
good. It's solid.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah,
that they were.
Kickstand is great.
Kickstand's amazing.
The new kickstand it uses friction hinge, so any angle is okay.
Yeah, and that they were able to get this thing this thin is astonishing to me. I thought I knew it would be thinner, but I didn't think it would be this thin.
So it's a lot thinner than the old Surface.
It's as thin as a Surface 2, which is the RT-based machine.
Oh, okay. Wow.
It's probably 2/3 as thick as a Surface Pro 2, but it seems like it's half as thick.
Where does the pen go? It doesn't have a holder.
It doesn't have a hole, but what they give you is a little tab that you can attach to the keyboard, and it goes into that. You can also magnetically stick it to the side of the Surface if you just
that's cool.
Using.
Yeah, and the pen, by the way, is completely done over. So this pen, I don't think works with the existing Surfaces. But
that's right.
No, because they dumped Wacom, so this is a different company doing it now.
So
is this an Entrig pen?
Yeah,
Entrig. Yeah.
And the old ones were Wacom, so they're not going to.
Right. And so this has, you probably saw it has a button on the top that actually is linked into OneNote. So if you hold down the button, it automatically opens OneNote.
I thought that was
device.
cool. And it turns on the device if it's off, right? It wakes it up.
And it works above the lock screen.
I like that, actually, because I'm always kind of like, OneNote.
Quickly,
so many
I want to take a note.
to using it.
Yeah. No, that makes OneNote really, it makes this a really good notepad.
Mm-hmm.
There's a controversy around the pen, though, because there is a certain class of digital artists who embrace the original Surface Pro.
Right. Because it's a Wacom. Because it's a Wacom.
It had 1,024 sensitivity levels. This one has 256, and I'm not a mathematician, but I know that number is smaller. What they told me was that, as it turns out, most people can't differentiate. Can't press in 1,024 different pressure levels. So, real world, the difference is actually non-existent, perhaps. I'll test this. I'm not really an artist, and I certainly don't, draw or paint or whatever with a pen. But I'm curious. I mean, it will be easy enough to do side-by-side comparisons using the Surface Pro pen with Pro 2 and using this new pen with Pro 3, and we can see. And people will do this. I'm sure people who are artists and people who, really do want to use these things with Photoshop or whatever applications will be testing this, and, we'll find out. But I actually don't think that's
Did you see Lance Ulanoff on Mashable yesterday drew a portrait on the Surface Pro 3?
Oh, he did? Okay.
And it's amazing what he drew.
Oh, really? Okay.
Really? He's a little artist in there.
Support that. Yes.
The other thing they did, this is just kind of a weird, goofy pen design thing. From using many tablet PCs from 10 years ago, I can tell you that most of the really nice pens back in the day, the eraser part of the pen worked like an eraser. You would actually flip it around and you'd rub that on the screen and it would erase things. That's how it worked. That's not how this pen works. Mary Jo just said that you can press. It's like a clickable button, like you have on a mouse, and you can use it to launch OneNote. And I think you can do like a double click to do something else with it too. But there are two buttons on the barrel of the pen, one of which is for erase, and one of which is for selection. So you can use it like a mouse, sort of. If you want to select disjointed parts of the screen, like maybe parts of a drawing or something. Which is interesting because we spend a lot of time in computers, I think, emulating real world things. And so the first pens we had were like pens, the eraser was on this other side. Flipping around a pen to erase something doesn't necessarily make a lot of sense. I mean, if you're deeply involved in a drawing, I mean, being able to just, toggle erase through the regular pen tip is actually kind of a cool use of digital technology, and one that is probably more efficient, than the old way of doing it. But it is an interesting difference.
I like the idea that you could use this as a mouse alternative because, as Paul knows, he sees me use my PC. I always am hooking up a mouse to the thing.
Yeah,
so if
not only do you have
could
crazy
be-
big legs, but your fingers are like...
Exactly. Then I'm trying to use a mouse.
I timed that right
when,
right when Paul was drinking on purpose.
So, no, for the waist up, she's like normally proportioned, but then the waist down.
Like, how tall are you, Mary Jo?
I'm 5'6".
Oh, you're
5'6",
normal.
so
You're normal. That's
I'm
not...
pretty normal.
Yeah, that's average for a woman.
Yeah. I'm not the only one who could not use this in my lap.
Almost no one could do it. I couldn't
It's
do
so
it.
funny because they spent a lot of time talking about lapability.
Yep.
Yeah.
They did with the Surface
really
2
confident.
also, and they claimed that was lappable, which it also wasn't.
But that's the argument for a detachable keyboard, because then it is lappable.
Right. Although I'll tell you, I think the thing to keep in mind, and we say this a lot, but we should say it again. We are not the real world customers.
No, I agree.
How many people are like us who type all the times on their laps like we do? Not that many, right?
People in the chat room do. A lot of people in the chat room say, hey, we use
Some
it
of
in our
them
laps.
do.
Yeah.
Students, journalists.
do. Yeah.
But how about business people? They're using this on a desk, right?
Right.
I mean,
They
that's
don't care.
kind of how they use this.
Yeah. I'm not going to go to a meeting and put my laptop in my lap.
Right.
They're going to wonder,
Unless you
what the
don't have
hell
a
are you
table.
doing?
Well, look, I think one of the cool
What's
things
going
about
on
this-
under that table there?
Yeah. Well, it does everything, right? I mean, it has a pen. It's got a keyboard. It's got a beautiful trackpad now. That's a huge difference, by the way.
Yeah.
You can attach a mouse. Touch the screen. It has all these different interaction possibilities, and so you can kind of mix and match based on the situation.
Yeah.
But man, I bet 5% of the population can put this thing on their lap. I mean, it's
No.
really. I bet it's a small number.
No. And so for me, that's a major feature. And I have to have something that is. And that's why everybody's like, oh, you're going to dump your new Acer for this, right? Nope. Because the Acer has a hinge and a built-in keyboard and a flat base. And that's a way I use my
By the
PC
way,
a lot.
to make Mary Jo's point, what did we do yesterday morning?
Yep.
we went to
sat on
Microsoft
chairs with
event.
no tables.
Sat on chairs with no table, and we had to type on our laps.
Yep.
Yep.
I
And how
saw
many
one or two
were doing
people
that?
doing it on a Surface. Did you?
Right, one or
but
two.
most
How many-
everybody
how-
else had laptops.
Had laptops, right?
Had Mac laptops.
A lot
Some of them did.
Yeah. Well, all the
Everybody in
guys-
the
all
front
dudes
row
out
did.
front They love to show
Yeah.
off.
Yeah, that's those show-off Mac people.
Yeah.
They're so show-off.
Yeah, I agree with Paul. That was partially a plant too, because Panos Panay, who was doing the keynote, he wanted to say, look at all you guys with your MacBooks, and we're here to tell you, you don't need to have two devices. You don't need to have a MacBook plus an iPad. So all you guys in the front row,
Yeah.
we're gonna show you.
But that backfired because nobody heard him say that. Everybody saw the picture of all the people in the front row with their glowing Apple logos. Right?
Well, I mean, to me, that's just the state of technology blogging. I mean,
Right.
back in the day.
That doesn't bode well.
No, it's like, look, I got to buy an Aeron chair. I got to get a MacBook Air. Like these are the things. I'm a tech blogger. That's
It's part of the deal.
yeah, I think so.
All right.
Well, it is. I know it is because I go to these events. You see, that's what you see. MacBooks.
Yep.
Well, shouldn't they be loyal Windows users? 1, 2, 3.
No, because that's Wall Street Journal, and
Oh.
Yeah.
They don't care. They're
Right.
journalists. I get it.
Yeah.
They're not.
they're not Windows people.
Windows people. Got it.
Which I think makes them uniquely qualified to write about Windows.
That might be a little problem.
I wouldn't
Might be a
distrust their
little
opinions in
problem.
the slightest.
I just want to point out that I have in front of me an HP Envy running Windows 8.1.
Thank you.
And I'm doing update 1 because it didn't come with the update on there, and I don't want to run out of updates.
But what else do we like about the
By
new
the
one?
way, this is actually really nice.
It is a nice machine. It
It's
is.
thin, it's light, great touch screen. Everybody's doing 1080p finally.
Yep.
Yeah.
Everything's 16:9. The only bad thing is that it says Beats Audio right there. You can't get rid of it. That's like always going to be on your screen.
That's why God invented duct tape.
I'm a little black tape, little black friction tape right on there. All right. So what else do we know? What else
we like the keyboard, right? Because
Is
it
it
has
different?
this new this new magnetic strip, right? That it like clicks onto the base of the device, so it slopes downwards towards you now, which is so much better ergonomically.
Oh, I saw
than
him do
typing
that little.
flat. Yep.
Where it goes.
That's so handy.
You don't
because
have to
it
do
was-
that, but you can do
No.
that. Yeah.
It's
My hands
surprisingly
kill
not. Well,
me.
it kind of just happens. It's not.
Oh, it
it's not
does.
hard
Right.
to.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought that again. It doesn't. I mean, maybe I should probably get one and use it. It just feels like that's like a detachable thing, and now it's got a little like double chin that comes up and.
So by
it's
the way, I thought so. I when he demonstrated that, I thought to myself, this thing is getting too complex. Like this is silly. It like wraps around on the bottom, it goes up, hits an angle. It's like the magic bullet that killed John F. Kennedy. Like then it takes the left, and it's like which by the way I know is fake. Don't worry.
You're gonna get the email.
I know,
I'm sorry, I
believe me,
was on the grassy knoll and I
Yes.
saw that bullet make those turns.
But actually, in real world use, it's fine. This works really well, and it by the way, it doesn't help too much. But to Mary Jo's point about lappability, I mean it makes the surface area of the whole thing a little shorter, right? Because it draws the keyboard in about an inch.
Yeah. So that's good.
That will help
That's
some
good.
people, I guess.
Yeah.
But
And it's
but
got
I-
less
yeah,
bounce.
those are big angle
Those
helps.
of you with short thighs will be so much
Right.
happier.
It has
It's
less
like short
bounce
ribs,
too,
but-
right, Paul?
Yeah.
Did you notice that?
What's that?
It's much. I think it has less bounce because the current keyboards, I like the type keyboard, but it has less bounce, which is nice because it's.
You would think this thing
sturdier.
hanging in the air would have more bounce, but actually
It doesn't.
I mean, again, it could sag over time. I don't know, but it works great. It is notable, by the way, how good the trackpad is. The trackpad. I was just last weekend. I was using a Surface Pro 2 with actually the power cover in this case, but the little trackpad that they shipped on all of their typing covers until now has been an absolute afterthought and a joke. And it is so bad as to almost not even be. I don't even know why it's there. It looks sometimes. I think it's just a rectangle in front of the keyboard that actually doesn't do anything. This one, I don't believe they described it as actual glass like you have on a MacBook Air or MacBook or whatever, but it is glass-like certainly.
Yeah.
And it works. And the way I can judge how things like this work is because on the way to New York, I was using a loaner laptop per review, which is an absolute piece of garbage. And if I want to do like a two-finger scroll in a web page or in a document on that computer, because of the performance problems, I actually just get my fingers going on the trackpad and I wait until the thing on the screen responds, and then I start scrolling because it's so slow.
That's frustrating.
And this thing, you touch it and it's instantaneous. It's beautiful. And that's an amazing about face for this thing because, again, the original
I
one
would
they had
guess
was-
it's hard to do. You're not going to do glass on something like a detachable keyboard like that.
Yeah.
So I would imagine that's hard to do a good trackpad on that. So
I don't know what it is. It feels like glass. Doesn't it feel like glass to you?
Yeah, it does. It does feel like glass.
so it's silky smooth. I mean, I'm playing with this Envy, and I'm sure it's glass. But
Okay.
but maybe they've got new features. Maybe they've got new materials that you can do that with. That
Yeah,
It
I don't
kind
know.
of felt like suede before.
Right. Well, right.
Yeah,
It was
it did.
the
It had a little
surface of
texture
it was.
to it.
Oh, you're right. It was the same material they used in the wrist rest.
Yeah, see, that's not.
And that's what I mean. It was
You
so
want
it was
slick.
awful because
Yeah.
like Mary Jo too. I'm sure you want to touch type.
Yeah.
And you get your finger,
Yes.
your hands are in position, and what you want to be able to do is reach down with your
Yeah,
you know,
know
thumb or
that you're
finger,
on the
and,
thing.
and
Yeah.
you can't tell you're on it
Yeah.
because it was the same material.
Yeah.
That is a huge improvement. The keyboard itself, by the way, is identical to the keyboard on the Type Cover 2. You know, backlit, mechanical. It's got a nice key throw and all that kind of stuff, but it's no bigger. It's just that the cover itself, of course, is bigger to cover the device.
And
it's bigger
we
in
should
both.
mention, for the cheapskates, you can use your existing type cover on these devices. It won't completely cover it, but it'll work.
You
If
can
it
use
fits.
it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, because I guess they call it the cover port is unchanged.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I'm shocked.
No, and
Yeah, I was
that's
surprised
good,
by that too.
right?
Yeah.
It's good
Another
because
big
you might not want to
improvement,
buy it all at once if you're
Yeah,
trying to cut
right.
corners.
Yeah, that's true. The power port is
Is that different?
significantly.
No.
Oh,
Yeah, so they
much
they've
better.
they've tried to do the magnetic thing, and it's been cute watching Microsoft trying to get that one right. So Surface RT was a disaster. But even with the newer devices, if I don't know, remember who said this? It might have been you, it might have been my wife, or someone was saying, you could, if you connected the power within the dark, you couldn't tell.
You never know
sometimes
if it's
you got it right.
connected.
Really? There was no way to know.
Well, because the way it used to do, you could kind of connect it at like a 45-degree angle, so it wasn't fully clicked in, even though it made a click sound because, of course, it's metal on metal. And so you kind of hear that click and you think, oh, I've made the connection, and you walk away. But then you come back the next morning or whatever, and you want to take it to work or whatever you're doing, and it's, it has never charged because it's not really connected. And so this time around, I can actually probably show it to you. There's I don't know how well you can see that, but there's a piece that actually goes in. So it's still magnetic, but the magnet pulls that part into the device now. And so from the outside, if you were looking at it just from, the outside, it looks exactly like it did before with the rounded tip, and it lights up on the top and everything. But it's much, well, I've only had it for a little while, but and actually I did just make it connect sideways, by the way. So it is possible still to do it wrong, but that's funny. Because it's, the whole thing's magnetic. God help you if you have like a pacemaker or something with this. But anyway, it is. I mean, every surface of this thing is a magnet, But it pulls that tip in, and it helps secure it better. So I think we're looking at kind of Gen 3 or 4, depending on how you want to measure it, of their power port connector technology. But it's definitely getting better.
But we should mention you can't use the new connector on the old surfaces, and you can't use the old connector on the new surface.
Right. Yep.
So
They're incompatible. So that's one. That's too bad for people who bought accessories. Maybe you had like a Pro and you're like, well, I want an additional power supply so I can take one when I travel, leave one plugged in at home. However you might have done it, that stuff is not compatible anymore. And obviously because of the size of the device, certain accessories like the dock are not compatible. There's a new dock that's bigger. But I don't, I don't mean this in a kind of a jerky way, but I don't think there are a lot of Surface users, so I don't know that we're burning too many people.
You could
here.
start from scratch without. And this was kind of surprising to me. I don't watch American Idol and The Voice live because I want to skip through to just the performances, and I was really surprised. I mean, even as recently as last week, even just a few days before this, they were still pushing the Surface 2.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, in ads.
In ads.
Yeah.
So what happens to people who bought one like Sunday?
you have a 30-day window to return them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But we should also note, I asked Panos Panay about this, and he said, you know what, we're going to sell out the Surface Pro 2 stock that we have, and then that's it.
So
This
there's
is the
still a
new
market
device.
for it.
Well, no, in other words, and it's possible if you actually were in the market for such a device and you still want that.
Is it a lot cheaper? Why would you get the Surface 2?
I don't think it is yet, but it may pay to wait because they did this, remember, last time.
They'll drop the prices, yeah.
They'll drop
And
the
some
price.
people want the smaller screen.
Right.
Some people actually prefer that. So
Right.
for those people, they
Those
should wait.
weirdos.
Tell me about the screen. Does it feel, I mean, you both use Surface 2s. Does it feel a lot bigger?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. It feels way bigger.
Yeah,
They
only an
shrunk
inch
the
bigger,
bezel,
right? Or-
right?
Yeah.
The bezel's
You
smaller.
know what though? It's so weird how screen size is like that. You're like, well, it's only an inch bigger. It's really about an inch and a half, I guess. But it's an inch and a half diagonally, right?
Yeah.
I think I wonder if I could do this easily.
An inch and a half diagonally is even less than an inch in width or height. I mean,
I just looked at. I was using Tweetium on my 13-inch PC, and then I tried it on the Surface Pro 3, and it felt like I had a lot of screen real estate, even though one was 12 and one was 13.
big difference.
So, I mean, this is not a Pro, but they're identically sized. I mean, this is an RT device. So, if you let me just put it on the matte side, so it won't.
Oh yeah, there's a big difference. That's noticeable.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big difference. And the other thing to note is that I think Mary Jo just said this. The bezel is smaller on the bigger device, and so the screen size difference is actually even more pronounced, right, than just the device size difference. If that makes sense.
Yep. They even said, I forget where I saw this. They said with the 3:2 screen ratio that it feels more like a 13-inch device when you're in terms of the screen real estate that you can see. Plus, coupled with that smaller bezel, it definitely
you have the
feels
phantom
big.
inch. It's like a phantom limb. You think you have the extra.
Yes.
A phantom thigh for supporting the surface.
Phantom thigh. Okay.
Why are there 2 wings and 3 thighs?
It's a chicken thing. You just wouldn't understand. All right. Okay. Anything else to say about the Surface Pro 3? Which one did you think I should get, Paul? You said you didn't think that the i5.
Oh no, I was talking about me. I mean, for me, what I would like is
I don't
something
think an
sell.
i7 is notably faster than an i5. I really don't. It's just hyper-threaded.
Right.
You get.
I just think of it as kind of a future-proofing kind of thing.
I see.
Me too. That's why I got an i7 with my Acer. That's why.
But I also wonder, for this machine, of course, whether that will impact battery life. I don't know if it does. Well, your machine gets really good battery life.
I asked
what'd they
about
say?
that. So the stated battery life for the Pro 3 is up to 9 hours. And I asked, what does it make a difference if you have the i3, i5, or i7? And they said very minimal difference based on which of those chips you have.
Really, how you use it makes a big difference.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, I
and
purposely
connected
used it
standby
unplugged.
works.
Connected standby works. That's good.
Yes,
With
connected
the cover,
standby. And you can snap 3 apps. That's another cool thing. You could have 3 exactly same sized windows snapped side by side on this, which is very cool. I like that one.
All right.
It has, I think on the negative side, they haven't really changed the port allotment. It only has one USB port. And it's funny, just like everything else. I mean, when you review a product and you can kind of say, this thing's a pro, this is a pro, this is a con, people will disagree with every one of those statements, And I often point out, one of the things I always pointed out about Surface Pro before this was, it's pro devices are bigger than this. The screen should be bigger. Pro devices would have more than one USB port. That doesn't make any sense. And people say, oh, what do you need? There's always people, for some reason, who defend this design decision like it makes any sense. But this bigger device still only has one USB port. And, again, minimal usage so far. But on the way home, I got a mouse plugged into it because I do graphics work and I want to use a mouse. I want to acquire pictures for my camera, and I can't do those 2 things at the same time. And that's irritating, And I guess I didn't because I didn't know I was getting this, but I could have packed like a port extender, like a USB port extender. That's another thing to carry around. I mean, why couldn't it just have a hole in the side of it? I don't understand why it doesn't have another USB port. Like it's 2 USB ports. It's so common.
Yeah. I have one of those Diamond Micro connectors that let you connect Ethernet, and it gives me like 4 more USB ports. That I use.
Yeah. And which, by the way, you need because when you travel like you do for work and you want Ethernet with a Surface Pro, by the way. There is an optional Ethernet adapter, and it's USB. So if you use that, you've just used up your one USB port. And I'm sorry, that's garbage.
Which one, Mary Jo? Tell us what you use, because that sounds like something people should get.
I think it's called Diamond Micro. Is that right?
Yeah,
Let me
I
look
think
it
it's
up.
a company.
It's got an Ethernet port and it has 4 USB ports. It's really great. It's like $39 or something.
Yeah, I see it on Amazon here.
Yeah.
Is this it?
And Yep. I've been using that a ton. It works great.
Actually, does this one have Ethernet? Oh yeah, there it is.
Good.
There's the Ethernet.
Yep.
And then there's 3, and it's USB 3 if you have USB 3 on the other end. And it's unpowered. It's not a powered hub.
Yeah.
Right. But again, it's a mouse, a phone.
Yeah, no, this is a good solution.
And the mouse is, by mouse, I don't mean a wired mouse. It's obviously it's like a little dongle thing. And that's another little bit of contention. If Microsoft's going to sell these devices with one USB port, how about making all of your mice available in like a Bluetooth format? So I don't need a nubbin,
Right.
The device has has Bluetooth, but that's not really the way they do things, is it?
I'm going to I don't want to be the fly in the ointment here. Whatever happened to Surface RT? Is that dead?
That still exists, and they still sell them.
Yeah, but the 2.
Yeah, so it's
2.
still generation 2, right? It's
Why would they announce
honestly,
this without announcing Surface RT 3?
Because they were going to do Surface Mini, and I believe at least
the Mini's the RT.
Surface Mini would have replaced that.
Got it.
That RT would have been relegated to that part of the market. Yeah.
So we'll see that
still
eventually.
I think that we're going to see more Surface RT/ARM based devices in the future, and maybe not just the Mini, because Panos was very adamant when I talked to him and saying, you know what, ARM's, it's not the end of the line for ARM for us, by the way, in the Surface team. We're making all kinds of test devices out there, all sizes, all form factors, using all chips. And we're going to just decide which ones we think are the best.
So it's not that like Satya came in one day and said, I was in the shower and I decided no more RT. What is this RT? We don't want the Mini.
I want to wash this right out of my hair.
Yeah. Because that could happen strategically.
Yeah.
One might argue it should happen.
I could make an argument.
Story said Elop and Satya Nadella got together and they said, guys, we're not doing this. The question is when.
I bet they were walking on top of that mountain again.
Oh, yeah. And that picture where they're walking side by side.
I bet that's how they make all their decisions.
It was Elop's decision, some people said. Right?
Well, he's the device. He's in charge of the
guy, right?
Yeah, we were doing a little bit of Microsoft executive bingo before the show started because it was kind of I described it as like a lineup of the Batman villains all in a row. It was like Mark Penn, Yusuf Mehdi, Stephen Elop, Satya Nadella. Who else was over there? It was like
who else was there?
The guy from Adobe who we didn't know.
Right, Mark Roth, was that his name?
I don't remember.
So
yes, by the way, Leo, you'll appreciate as a longtime Mac guy the hilarity of Adobe showing it to the party like 5 years too late with like, hey, even though this would have been really easy to add at any given time in our history, we've decided finally that we're going to support high DPI displays and allow you to scale the icons in our applications. Hey, thanks, Adobe. Thank you. You guys are the best.
They figured it out. Well, it took them a while to figure out how to do it.
Yeah.
What do you mean how to do it?
It's a programming challenge.
It was dependent on the digitizer too, wasn't it? Or no?
You know what's interesting? I don't know why, but this HP Envy comes with Lightroom.
Interesting. How big are the icons? Are they like little tiny specks?
No. Actually, maybe this is Adobe saying, see, we can do it.
Yeah.
We can do it. LTE, not on these.
Not that I'm ever saw.
No, but they didn't rule it out. We asked, and they said, none of the models we announced today have LTE. That's all they said.
Yeah, so they do have an LTE Surface 2, so it's conceivable. I actually, Leo, maybe this is something you may know. I had this conversation possibly in Mary Jo's presence, but I wondered why companies don't just add LTE, an LTE port or chipset or whatever it
is the issue.
How much could that possibly add to the cost of a device?
Well, depends how much the margins are.
$18,
one of the reasons you do it you almost for free on ARM systems is because Qualcomm has a system on a chip with LTE built in, so it comes on the SoC. I think you probably do honestly have to add a new chipset, and that's not just the cost. That's a new design.
But Microsoft is developing this motherboard themselves. It has an innovative new fan that's like the flattest fan ever created. It's the thinnest core device ever made. You can get it with an i7 chip with 8 gigs of RAM and 512 gigabytes of storage, and you can't get an LTE card in this thing. I mean, it just seems like if you're pushing a high-end device like this, it should just be there. And by the way, if only 2% of your users ever actually enable it, you've still stopped people from bitching about something online, which I think in this day and age would be a huge win.
I would guess that Microsoft is not insensitive to the desire for it, and it
I
really,
disagree, Leo.
I would guess it's an engineering consideration, especially something this thin. That they just,
I just don't think it makes
you have to
sense.
add a whole separate system, a subsystem, a chip subsystem to this, because there's no Intel chip there's no SoC with LTE on the Intel side. It's only on the ARM side.
Interesting. Well, there should be, and maybe that
might be an Intel failing, right?
Yeah. Somewhere someone at Microsoft is saying, see, that's why we went with ARM.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And why they should not kill the Surface Mini. Or maybe there's a Surface 3 RT that's just not mini.
Right. There could be.
Maybe a 12-inch. Yeah, maybe,
But what would be, in other words, okay, so they come out with that device in September, let's say, and it's exactly like the 2, except it's a 3. It has what, a Tegra, whatever the next version number is, or maybe a Qualcomm chipset. I mean, we're not. At what point does this differentiate in any meaningful way? At what point is there a human being on this earth who says, I was going to buy the 2, but this thing actually puts it over the top?
Well,
I don't. Yeah. It just doesn't sound interesting.
You do have that problem, and the Surface Pro 3 moves into the big boy Intel chips, and so that you don't have that going on with ARM.
Right.
You can't say, well, now you have a big boy chip.
Yeah. I mean, it could be the fact that the device is more locked down, and maybe at some point you don't have a desktop, and that makes it more interesting.
That's something it seems like you would wait until that next Windows.
Well, you're waiting until Gemini for sure.
Yeah, and also probably Windows 9, right?
Really?
Yeah, so maybe that is like next spring.
Yeah, it's not that far away. I mean, if you're thinking about, you don't want to roll device after device after device because people are like, wow, wait, I just bought one.
It'd be like doing like 3 Surfaces in 18 months. It'd be nuts. Crazy talk. How many months has Surface been around? 2 years? Year and a half?
Well, the original Surface was October 2012, so it's year and a half-ish. But actually, by the way, I do think it's notable that the Surface Pro line has been revved very quickly. I mean, they did announce it before they actually shipped it. But the first one came out January, February 2013. The second one came out in October 2013.
Really quick. Yeah.
Third one came out in May, or I guess June, for when it's going to ship, June 20th. But, that's roughly 7, 8, 9 months in there. It's not a year,
Right.
Yeah.
That's actually really aggressive.
And you're saying that's a good thing.
I'm just saying it's notable. I mean, I think the first version to the second version, they had to do it because that chipset they had in V1 was terrible. The chipset they have in V3 is the same one they have in V2, by the way. I mean, that's how quick it's been. We haven't even revved the Intel chipset. I just think it's interesting. I mean, they talk about delivering things very quickly, and I would say with Surface, I mean, honestly, it's been very quick.
And the other device we haven't mentioned that you have to figure in is, remember, there's the Lumia 2520, which is ARM based, right? And so now Microsoft owns that part of Nokia that makes that. So you could say maybe they had some things in the pipeline that were more, differently sized tablets, not minis, but something bigger that might come out in some relatively soon time frame. But it'll be looking more like that device, maybe.
I wouldn't be surprised if Steve and Elop made the argument that they already have the 1520, and in many ways that is a better mini tablet than a lot of the mini tablets that are on the market.
All right. Anything else to say before I take a break? Any final words before we march you down the Green Mile?
I would just say, I've speculated a lot about what this device could be. And in doing so, I sort of had to temper my expectations because there were certain assumptions I was operating under as to what Microsoft would or could do. And I'm surprised because, one of the things I wrote just the other day was, I'd like to think they could get away from 16:9, but we have to be realistic. They're not going to do that. So let's stop pretending we're going to get a 4:3 screen and try to just, temper our expectations a little bit. This device is surprising, and it's surprising in mostly really good ways. And, again, I just got it, and I don't want to get too crazy yet. But, I'm actually surprised by how good it is so far.
Everybody seems to really like it. The reviews have been very positive.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. I think we just need some time, right?
Yeah. I mean, you've had it for less than 24 hours.
I want to see how the battery life goes. You know, I want to see. There's all kinds of things I want to. You just need to spend time with it.
All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, more with Paul, Mary Jo. We'll talk more about Microsoft. Lots more to say. You're watching Windows Weekly on a beautiful Wednesday afternoon, unless you're in Hawaii, and then it's a beautiful Wednesday morning. Our show brought to you by ShareFile. It comes up very frequently in business. I would say almost more often than not that you've got to send a file. We do it all the time. Contracts, spreadsheets, presentations, and you do it via email, right? But this is, something should bug you about that. It's the wrong thing to do. First of all, email is a really big vector for viruses, for malware, and particularly in business. It's a target for spear phishing. In fact, if I were the IT guy at your work, I would not allow email attachments inbound at all. And I bet you there are a few that don't. There's also the issue of security. It's not HIPAA compliant. It's not compliant with SEC regulations if you're in the financial industry because it's not private. So let me just tell you about Citrix ShareFile. Really a great way to send attachments. First of all, you don't have any limits in the size. I think it's 4 gigabytes, something like that. You can send files of almost any size without bounce backs. You never lose control. You decide who has access to your files for how long. You'll get notifications when they open it. You can password protect them if you want additional security. So it's HIPAA compliant. It is HIPAA compliant. It is SEC compliant. And it's really affordable, really easy to use. I use ShareFile all the time. I want you to visit sharefile.com, take a look around, see if you like what you see. And if you do, start your free trial, 30 days free. But don't click the link in the middle. Click the one at the top of the page that says podcast listeners. Click here and use the offer code WINDOWS. This is the way to share files securely, quickly. People who receive the files do not have to have a ShareFile account. They don't even see ShareFile. They see your company's logo. They see a nice big download button. It's very easy. I use it to share audio files with the radio stations. Not the most technical group in the world, and it works great. Sharefile.com. Click the microphone. Please use our offer code WINDOWS. I think you're going to like it from Citrix. Leo Laporte, Paul Thurrott, and on Skype 3... Mark Russinovich. I'm excited. The new book just came out. Hi, Mark.
Hey, Leo. How's it going?
It's going great. I'm going to let Paul or Mary Jo take the lead on this because I don't know what the hell you're doing here. But I just want to say...
Yes, explain yourself, sir.
I just want to say I'm very excited about the new book. We were talking about it yesterday on Security Now. And I think Steve Gibson's already read a advanced copy of it and loves it.
Yeah, I'd be glad to send you a copy if you want one.
I prefer to buy all my books on audible.com, and I see it's all there already on Audible. So,
all right, I appreciate that.
No, I love your stuff because it's so technically right on. Of course it is. Mark is the founder of SysInternals, which was purchased by Microsoft. That's the other thing is I'm always telling people, get auto runs, get the Process Explorer. On the radio show, people call all the time. When is this thing? Every time I start up, something starts up. Just get auto runs. So the new one is Rogue Code. Scary name. Don't be put off by it. Came out the same day as the Surface 3.
Yeah.
Bad planning by the Surface team.
Nice. So I don't, Paul, is there a reason you brought Mark on? Is it to talk about?
There is a reason because his new book is out, Leo.
That's what I thought.
His new book is awesome.
And you've read it too, huh?
This is the third book in the series, not counting a short story, right? So it's like 0 Day, and I just forgot the name of the second one. What was the second one? The second book.
Trojan Horse.
Trojan Horse. Thank you, of course. And I think that when you think about techno thrillers in this day and age, I mean, kind of like post Crichton, I think about Mark and I think about Daniel Suarez, but I think the thing that separates Mark's books from Daniel Suarez's is that they're so incredibly plausible and based on real world events and occurrences, And this new one is interesting to me because I don't know anything about this topic at all. Like I know in the previous books it involved a lot of things around, Chinese hacking and Iran and Stuxnet and all that kind of stuff.
This one's really ripped from the headlines because it's about high frequency traders.
Yeah,
which
and
I
actually
know
that was
zero
complete
about.
coincidence too. The timing of it.
I just read Flash Boys, and so my next book is gonna be Rogue Code, because Flash Boys is about the very real, high speed traders on Wall Street, and so I gather, and again, I haven't read it, and no spoilers here because I'm just gathering from what I've seen that the Rogue Code is some rogue code that gets into the high frequency trading computers.
It actually gets into the stock exchange.
The exchange itself.
The exchange itself, yeah.
Well, that's the end of
I
the
hate
world.
to even.
Yeah.
I hate to know the answer to this in a way because in reading this, I'm thinking to myself, like, I know Mark well enough to know that this is plausible, like that this is based on. This is based on information that he has. That
it's
he's
like
done
he
research.
knew that the NSA was spying on us, and he wrote about it last time.
Yeah.
And then it came out. Mark's got.
I just don't want to go
sources.
through another 2008. Is all I'm saying.
Yeah.
Well, Jeff Aiken saved the day, so we don't have to
Yay!
worry about it.
Who's going to play Jeff Aiken in the movie?
That's a good question. I don't know.
Have they? They must have approached you.
I've sold the options. for
Yay!
this. Yeah.
Yay!
But
But there's many a slip to the option in the film.
that's correct. Yeah. I was told by my book agent that if I thought publishing was bad enough, that movie business is worse.
Sometimes they buy the book so that nobody else will make it.
Yeah.
And if you're really lucky, what you'll be sitting in a movie theater one day and you'll see a preview for a movie that looks shockingly similar to a story you may have written, and you have absolutely no credit whatsoever. So hopefully you won't have to go through that.
Too. Yeah.
Yeah, but that kind of thing happens.
So you still work at Microsoft though, right? I mean, this is
Microsoft.
you still have a
Azure.
day job.
Yeah. In fact, I met with Mary Jo last week and talked about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I heard you kind of gave me some shout outs in your keynote as well that I missed. You and Mark Manasseh.
Yep. We did.
Oh, that's cool.
I don't know if they were
cool.
good shout outs or
I think they're
bad
good.
shout-outs.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I got to interview Mark because last week at TechEd there were tons of Azure announcements, like tons and tons and tons of them. And you're still, I think your title's still Distinguished Engineer in Azure, right?
Technical fellow, actually.
Technical fellow, technical
Jeffrey
fellow.
Snover is a distinguished engineer, a lowly distinguished engineer.
So
And I know
technical
you have a
fellow
speaking-
outranks distinguished.
They have a
engineer.
rivalry,
that's
a
right.
speaking
There you
rivalry.
go.
That's interesting. I like
It's
it.
like watching two kids in a sandbox throwing toys.
I like it.
Jeffrey Snover and Mark.
Yeah.
So,
But Mark
So,
does not wear a
well-
tie.
no.
That's how you can tell them apart.
So
Or funny shoes.
you work all day, Mark. You do the corporate rounds. Do you code still at all?
I do on sysinternals.
So you're
Which
still
is
doing the sysinternals, which is great.
Still doing that, yeah.
And then you come home and you write a book.
Yeah, right at home in the morning and at night and weekends. Big weekends are the big one.
I hate overachievers so much. I think you need to slow down. This is not nice. Making the
Yeah,
rest
the
of
nice
us
thing
look
is that
like
this is my hobby, and it's like when people ask me how I find the time. Well, I don't watch sports on TV, and I don't play golf, and this is the stuff
Do you
that I
have
do.
a family?
Yeah, I've got a family, but they give me space to do this kind of stuff, which is great.
Well, they probably feel like it's a good thing. You go in your little room and you type and you come out a nicer person.
yeah.
Do you write now? When you how did you write the first one? I mean, what this is kind of a leap to become a novelist.
Right.
Yeah. Well, like many people in my field, in our field, I grew up reading science fiction and techno thrillers.
Yeah.
Michael Crichton, Andromeda Strain. I remember 7th grade reading that book over the summer and saying, wow, that book was, I felt like I learned something. I felt like it was technically accurate. It wasn't, very cool. You could meld the thrilling story with plausibility like that.
That was
And,
was great about it, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it turns out
Yeah, you read something
the
like-
stock exchange is no longer a bunch of guys in green coats in New York City yelling, sell, buy, sell, buy. It's all done in what?
Actually, this
New
book
Jersey.
is depressing to me.
Yeah.
No, because this is something I don't want to know about this stuff. Like I get emails from Fidelity and I think everything's fine. And then I read, just in the first 10 pages of the book, you have this kind of history of how the stock exchange has been basically computerized so that they can make these trades at using, microwave transmissions that are, basically 95% the speed of light or whatever. And I'm
Between
like,
Chicago and New York.
God damn it. Like this is so depressing that it's like this,
What's
because
cool
again, it's so
is that's
plausible.
exactly how Michael Lewis's book Flash Boys starts, was the building of a fiber link, the shortest possible fiber link between Chicago and where is it? Poway? It's New Jersey.
Yeah.
Where's the exchange? What? Nutley?
They're right across the river from New York City.
Yeah.
right
All of
on
the major data centers.
They got Nutley. They got Poway. They got.
Yeah.
And there's no humans involved at all. They're in a data center.
That's right.
What
And then
happened to
they're
those
selling-
guys with the green coats? Are they just like on the bench in Central Park?
Well,
Saying they
so there's still a few of them, and you see them on TV, but that's just for show.
It's for show.
Yeah.
When they ring the bell,
Yeah. The guys in the pit.
they go,
Yeah.
Sell. They're just shouting, sell. They don't
While
know.
that bell is still ringing in the air, millions of transactions have already occurred.
Well, that's the point. Within the first ring of the bell.
Yep. You can
Yep.
still hear it in the back of your head, and yeah.
First few
Unbelievable.
milliseconds. Yeah.
Mahwah, New Jersey.
Wow.
The beautiful Mahwah, New Jersey.
So how did you even find? I mean, so I look at your other two books and I think, okay, these are topics that are part of our industry. They're out there. It makes plenty of sense. And then it's like high frequency trading, and I'm like, what? How did you even find out about this, or how did this even come up? Is this? Do you know some awful secret about computer security that that we need
If
to know?
you
Like,
only, these are all coded messages from Mark about what's really going on. You know that, right?
Right.
Well, so I came up with the book idea sketch about 2.5 years ago. And if you look at the first one was focused on cyber terrorism. The second one was state-sponsored cyber espionage. The only big topic in cybersecurity left was financially motivated cybercrime. And there were aspects to cybersecurity and network security that I hadn't touched on in the first two. One, how do very restricted, very mature environments secure themselves. And so that led me into a convergence of financially motivated cybercrime and something like the stock exchange. So malware gets in the stock exchange, and then I was thinking, if malware was in the stock exchange, what could it do to make money for somebody? And it was basically queue jumping and backing out of orders. So if the malware could sit there and watch orders coming in and position its trades ahead of anybody else waiting in line, then it could skim off the top. And
it's the Superman 3 thing.
Yeah, it's kind of like that.
The half penny.
And what had connected this with high frequency trading was I saw, like everybody else did, the flash crash in 2010, which was an astounding thing. The market losing 10% of value in a few minutes, and nobody understanding even months later what the hell happened. And it was all driven by computerized trading. So algorithmic trading, computerized trading, high frequency trading, and that's what got me into, okay, so this taking orders and moving them to the front of the line, that's a lot of what high frequency trading is about. There's some confusion actually out there, and Michael Lewis kind of touches on one aspect of high frequency trading, which is simply the latency and getting ahead of somebody.
Yeah, front
but there's
running,
another
they call
aspect
it,
which
yeah.
is not, he only touches on, which is special order types that the exchanges have made for high frequency trading firms that let them back out of trades so that they don't get hit by something, and also get to the front of the line ahead of people using a trade order, not even latency. And actually that's one of the more egregious problems, these undocumented interfaces that allow them to do that.
Unbelievable. You probably
already
went to school with some guys who ended up as quants on Wall Street.
Yeah, actually there was a guy from Azure that left.
An
left
Azure
and-
guy went to Wall Street?
Yeah, went to Wall Street to work on.
Well, it's lots of
algorithmic
money
trading.
there. I don't.
Yeah.
And yet at the same time, you're not really creating anything of value.
Yeah. It's
By you, he means the bank, not Azure.
yeah.
No. I mean the guy who leaves. Of course, Azure's of huge value, but the guy who leaves and says, "Well, I'm just going to take my brilliance, and these guys are brilliant programmers,
Yeah.
and I'm going to apply it to making, little pennies on transactions on Wall Street.
Yeah.
Lots of little pennies.
I'm
Michael
curious
was-
how much of like your experience in data centers running Azure kind of informs the book. Does that give you any kind of fodder for this thing? It must.
It does in terms, like I said, of a mature, highly secure environment, because this is, if you look at Azure, it's like what the stock exchange would want. So I didn't talk to anybody at the stock exchange about their security systems or network security architecture. So I extrapolated from what I know of best practices and what we do in Azure, and what I've been participating in driving us in Azure. Kind of the keys to the kingdom are sitting inside of this production. What are the ways into the system? How do you stop bad things from happening in the system? And then potential holes.
You must have some thoughts, though, about, I mean, what are they running? Hadoop? I mean, what are they?
Well, I think the engines themselves are running on Linux.
Linux.
And
okay.
Pretty stripped down, yeah, systems.
Basic, very fun. Yeah, they don't have LibreOffice on them.
Yeah.
Man.
Are they using CentOS, or are they using a special distro that they?
Yeah, I don't know what the stock exchange is using.
Well, they're not saying, obviously.
Yeah.
That would be giving away something important. What if? Well, I can't wait to read Rogue Code. It came out yesterday.
Yeah.
And Steve Gibson, who's already read it, says it's just fabulous. Of course.
That's good.
Paul, have you read it?
What do you thought?
Yeah.
You loved it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I haven't yet. I have it, but I haven't yet read it.
All right.
Yeah, I think it's the best of the three. The reviewers, I have a group of friends and colleagues that have been with me through the second and third one. The first one I wrote before I came to Microsoft, but the second and third one, and they've also read Zero Day. They all unanimously claimed that this was the best so far.
It's the plausibility is obviously what sells it, but it's also what depresses me about it. Because again, I'm waiting for this future where, corporations have so much money, they have their own private armies, and they're basically, making their own deals with actual countries. And then, that kind of, you can just kind of picture how this all goes south. And it's,
we've seen many movies like that.
It's freaking me out. But this is like how it starts, this is, we just, let the high frequency trading is crazy to me. It's just something I never know anything about.
I really look forward to a movie, because it would be the first movie where they got the tech really right? Presumably.
And I think actually of the three of them, this would be the best.
Absolutely.
Movie. The timeliness of it.
Well, nobody wants to think about cyber terrorism. That's depressing. Yeah. And a little too close to home, the spying on, government spying on their people. Yeah. So I think, financial markets, that's good. I think that's perfect.
Yeah.
Rogue Code, a Jeff Aiken novel. So really, who do you want to play Jeff Aiken?
Bradley Cooper, I think, would be good.
Yes, he's smart, good-looking, not a macho guy exactly.
Yeah, but he can bring it on when he needs to. Yeah.
Thanks, Mark.
All right.
It's great to have you, Mark Russinovich. Go back to work on Azure.
All right, thanks for having me on the show.
And sysinternals. Thanks, Mark. It's great stuff. Microsoft sysinternals are a must-have for anybody using Windows. We've said that for a long time. We're going to continue on. Paul Thurrott, Mary Jo Foley, lots more to talk about. I should have promoted. I mean, I buried the lead. We had Mark Russinovich in the wings. Should have mentioned that. Sorry, and I'll put it in the tease. How about that? Meanwhile, a little word from our friends at Shutterstock. If you do a blog, a publication, if you're in a business where you could use graphic designs, Shutterstock is a great resource for you with over 35 million high-quality stock photos, illustrations, vectors, and video clips. Actually, I always like to go to Shutterstock when I do the ads, see what the latest count is. By the way, just looking at the site is great. They have an iPad and Android app that's like just beautiful inspirations from the site. It's just like all images. Just love it. 37,263,465 royalty-free stock images. They added more than 250,000 last week. Most of their images by professional photographers and artists. They review each of them, of course, individually for content and quality. With 20,000 new images every day, more than that, really, it's important that they have a great search engine, and they do. Let's search for spy. See if we can find a picture of a spy. Yeah, this is good. I like that. So their illustrations, their photos. You can buy image packs, or you can buy a subscription. That's what we have. The subscription, we have the basic subscription. Standard subscription is 25 images a day. But you can sign up for free. And when you sign up for free, you get to browse around and save images that you find in your light box. You could share them with colleagues, keep them around for inspiration. You have videos, too. Don't forget to check the footage tab to see different videos. We use a lot of the video because it's got alpha channels. We use it with our green screens to do really cool effects and so forth. Shutterstock.com. It's a great solution. Multilingual customer service, more than a dozen countries, full-time customer support throughout the week. Try it right now. No credit card needed to start an account, and just browse around and save images in the Lightbox. But when you decide to purchase images, we invite you to use the offer code Windows 514, and you will get 20% off any package. And that's a real deal if you get this. That one's free this week when you sign up. So do sign up. Shutterstock.com. Use the offer code Windows 514 when you buy for 20% off. We thank them for their support of Windows Weekly. Mary Jo Foley, Paul Thurrott, and Mr. Skype in the middle there. I don't know. we'll get rid of that. Talking about Windows. That's nice to get Mark on. I'm glad you did.
Yeah. Yep.
We should just get him on sometime to talk about Azure.
Yeah, I agree.
I know. Yep.
You could talk about some of his old exploits. You know, when I became part of Windows NT Mag in the early days, you know, part of the appeal of it was that guys like Mark Russinovich and Mark Manassi actually, you know, wrote for that publication. And Mark Russinovich was the guy who had discovered that the difference between Windows NT Workstation and Server, aside from being a cost of several $1,000s, was like one registry entry. You know, like it was like, you know, it was just.
This was before he worked for Microsoft. We might
like a decade before. Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's just amazing. He has amazing stories. He tried to help out the Linux guys with the Linux kernel at one point and was completely rebuffed.
What? Really?
Because he was a Windows guy.
Oh, that sucks.
And only to discover over the ensuing months that they actually implemented every single one of the changes he recommended, but they had to blast him publicly.
Didn't want to give him credit. Yeah.
That's what they. Yeah.
That's terrible.
Yep.
And actually, I think that that's not normal in the open source community because so many big companies now contribute back to open source projects.
Well, this was several years ago.
I think nowadays they expect in fact, where they'll slam them is where
right. By the way, everything
back, right?
Yes, those relationships have all changed.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, those were the days when Microsoft was like suing people for using Linux. It was a different time.
Oh, we've matured way past that. Now we're just using it. It's completely different, Leo. Completely different.
Hey, they run Linux VMs on Azure. They're doing GitHub, right? It's like they're doing a lot of stuff.
No, it's all.
They're open sourcing .NET, according to some people.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So
I've heard that.
There you
go. Still no word about Miguel and Xamarin becoming part of the Microsoft family.
I don't know. I feel like that's looking less and less likely.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Huh.
I'll give it.
One of the things they showed off that I thought was really maybe the best demo of the day yesterday was using Final Draft for script writing, which is, I think, a good thing to show. I mean, that's a real productivity tool. But then, who was it? Was it Panos, or was it who was demonstrating how his brother's?
I think it was somebody from Adobe, wasn't it, who did the Adobe stuff? Is that what?
No, it was somebody whose brother was a screenwriter, right?
The one that was Panos.
That was Panos.
Yeah, his brother.
Yeah.
And so he's got the script, and he handwrites notes. And but then there's also recognition. Is that OneNote only, the recognition?
No, that's built into Windows.
That's part of the whole thing.
Yeah, this is one of the things, by the way, about the Windows platform that I don't think people understand generally, which is that, you know, a decade or more ago, Microsoft created this for Windows, this concept of digital inking, and that they used to use the term that you could use handwriting as a first-class citizen from a data standpoint.
Right.
And what that meant was that if you had a hard drive that had photos and text documents and Word documents, and then you had like these handwritten notes, you could do a search of the system, and you could search for the word, you know, Paris, and you would get search results from the handwriting because it just uses it like any other kind of data. It doesn't have to transfer to text first. It's like a first-class data citizen. You know, obviously those devices didn't sell very well, but Microsoft has been honing this technology over the years. They've integrated it into Windows, obviously. And now that tablets are kind of a big deal again, I don't know if you've noticed, there's some hope that Microsoft could, you know, achieve some sort of an edge because they have this. And I think that's the type of thing, you know, you have to almost remind people like, hey, we have this capability. It's incredible. And I think to people who aren't familiar with it, it's it's like, wow, that's amazing, and it's like, we've had this for 10 years.
Well, they have voice recognition too, right?
Yeah, voice too. Yeah,
People just, unless you use it, you just don't know what's in there.
sure.
Yeah.
So you you have an entry here on the digital inking strategy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was interesting because this was a video that leaked over the weekend from Microsoft Research, and it was Paul sent me the link to it on, I think it was Friday or Saturday, and said, "Look at this thing." And of course, right after we both looked at it, they pulled it. But it was a really interesting presentation because they're talking about how with there being one Microsoft now, that finally, instead of having all these different digital inking platforms for Windows, Office, and Perceptive Pixel and Surface, they're going to have one. And the teams are actually working together. Imagine that, on one digital inking strategy. And the video was interesting because it mentioned Threshold, it mentioned Gemini, and it was just, I think it was meant to be like Microsoft Research talking to some people inside the company about what the plan was, and somehow it got put up on the research site.
It's down now, by the way.
It's down now. Yeah.
Well, yeah. People took exception to the term leak.
Right?
Did somebody mirror it?
It leaked. It was.
I think somebody mirrored it. But Paul also noticed that there were early screenshots of Gemini, which are the touch-first Windows apps that are similar to the Office on the iPad kind of apps. So yeah, it was a very surprising thing to get out in the wild, but it was out there.
I think this was good news for everybody because people want to believe that this Office Touch thing for Windows will be better than the Office for the iPad, which of course it will be. But you see some early examples, but some examples of why that may be the case. That the Windows version will be more sophisticated, and of course, inking is obviously a big part of that.
It almost sounds like an ad for getting a Microsoft tattoo. One Microsoft, a great inking experience is not a feature.
Nice.
Yep. Fast fluid inking in off Windows, robust ink applications in
It's
Office.
fast and fluid. Does it say fast and fluid?
It says
it
fast
does.
and fluid.
Well, that tells you when they made it.
Why? Because they don't use that anymore, the fast fluid?
No, that's well, I don't know. Maybe not. I don't think they do.
It's lickable. Lick the ink.
Yep. But that's really, I think it's awesome news because it means when they do have this unified digital inking platform, you'll have common gestures probably. You'll have a common UI for this thing.
That's a nice idea.
Right? And then if you have Perceptive Pixel, you'll be able to maybe use the same pen that you use on Surface and do some annotations on your giant screen. That would be cool.
One pen to rule them all. I like that.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's the kind of thing Microsoft of old might never have done because of warring factions within.
Yep.
But really could really benefit the company to have to do that because they are everywhere. And if I could use just one pen and I could use it everywhere, that would be awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's too bad they don't have a mini tablet. They could use a pen.
A mini tablet.
Oh, well.
Never thought.
Maybe
What a
one day we
concept.
will see that.
What a concept. China bans Windows 8. This just in. No.
These are just awesome. I just like this whole headline. I also enjoy the fact that China has provided 3 possible reasons for why they did
One
this.
of them was what it wasn't being updated long enough.
I swear it was because XP is not being updated anymore.
Yeah.
Which makes no logical sense
No,
whatsoever.
we're not going to use Windows 8 because XP is not being updated.
My theory, well, I think all these things have some.
I think it has to do with the
credence to them,
NSA more than anything else, I would guess.
I think that's part of it, actually. There was another big news story involving the United States accusing several Chinese, I think, generals or whatever, they're governmental employees of some kind, of spying on the United States, which, happened the same day that this was announced. So I don't think that's coincidental. But,
I think China thinks that Microsoft is running the United States. I think that's the real.
Right.
Aren't they?
Right.
Wait, they aren't.
They're not in charge here?
Not anymore. No, I think that, when you look at the 400 plus million people that are running XP, I bet a huge chunk of those people are in China.
Yeah.
Where XP has been widely pirated, easily pirated, distributed like chiclets around the country, And I honestly think, that's part of it too. That
Microsoft's not exactly going, oh, that's terrible.
Yeah. And China is developing their own operating system too, if I'm not mistaken.
They have a Red Linux that they've been doing that
so
for years.
that might be part of it, and whatever. The other thing to point out too is when you hear the China bans Windows 8. They're banning the Windows 8 on new computer sales to the government only. The government is the biggest purchaser of computers in the country, but it's only government computers, so it's not.
Look, they got
China
their one legal copy. They're just going to make as many copies as they want now. That's all right. Yeah.
They have like a TechNet key they're just going to use
from now on.
That's probably why. It's like Microsoft canceled their TechNet subscription and China pulled out of Windows 8.
That's the real reason.
It's like they were using a TechNet personal subscription for the entire country.
And I'm guessing this Microsoft SAP tighten their ties article comes from Mary Jo Foley. I'm just thinking.
By the way, before you get to this, I do want to add an Xbox story in here after.
Okay, good. Okay.
Oh,
that's your reward, Mary Jo. That's your punishment for
I know. So
SAP.
if I have to
So make
talk
it
about
count.
SAP, right, we get Xbox. Okay. So at the SAP thing, actually, we should have brought this up with Mark because this was a pretty interesting announcement this week. So everybody probably knows SAP is hitting some hard times themselves, and they've had layoffs, and they're redoing their own cloud strategy. But right on the heels of all this bad news, they announced that they're working with Microsoft to get a lot of their core business apps and also their HANA developer platform certified on Windows Azure. So it already was, a lot of these things were already certified on Amazon Web Services, and now they're also going to be certified on Azure. So what that means is if you're an SAP customer, you can go and take your license and an image from the image gallery that Microsoft has for Azure, and you can actually just put that right up into the VM and start using it that way. It's not free, obviously. You have to pay, but it's really, really good for people who want to dabble in the cloud, get their ERP and other business apps in the cloud in case you're not using Microsoft apps. So a very interestingly timed and good announcement for people who have SAP. I bet Mark would have had a lot to say about it. Sorry, I forgot to mention that.
You had an enterprise ally there, right there.
I did. He was within my grasp.
Within your grasp. You failed to grasp it. Of course, one of our favorite places that runs Azure is Xbox. And Paul Thurrott.
Nice segue.
We got an update, Xbox update.
Yeah, I was just thinking about this as Mary Jo was talking about SAP, which sounds terrible. It sounds like I just ignored everything she said. I'm sorry.
I was thinking about Hawaii, so it's okay.
I don't know what you said.
That came out wrong. I'm sorry. No, but it went through my head that one of the neat things about a lot of what Microsoft does is that a lot of the parts of Microsoft have these regular monthly updates, and we've had this notion of Patch Tuesday for many, many years. And it was always for Windows and for some of the core products like Office and things like that, where, the second Tuesday of every month, we get all these updates. Now we're starting to see other product groups kind of jump on this. So we see like Surface firmware updates are often tied to Patch Tuesday, and Xbox One updates as well, although increasingly they've been off of Patch Tuesday for whatever reason. And they've also started this notion of not really private, but semi-public beta tests, where each month some people get the system update early, and then they can get feedback on it and make sure they don't need to make any changes. And so the update that we just got, which we were calling the May system update, was not a profound update in the scope of Xbox One system updates. It just said a couple small things, sound mixers, chat mixer, that kind of thing. But the one that's coming in June is a major update, and it's going to answer a lot of the complaints that people have had. And so, for example, one of the complaints I get all the time, and actually I feel this one myself as well, is that Xbox ships with this hard drive inside the box, but it's not user serviceable, and it doesn't support external storage yet. This is a feature that's been available in the Xbox 360 for years and years. Now they're going to support increasing the capacity of the system with external storage. And so you're going to be able to plug in a large USB 3 hard drive to your console and use it for game storage. That's a feature the Xbox 360, actually, no, that's not true. It does have, but just for smaller amounts of storage. But now it's going to support 256 gigabyte or higher or larger USB external hard drives, which will allow you to copy games from the internal hard drive to that hard drive, or just install new games to that hard drive. That's actually kind of a neat and major new feature. They're going to have a real name system, which is not like the type of things you hear about in certain online services where people are being forced to use their real names, but rather if you're friends with people and you can't keep track of who your actual friends are in Xbox Live, you can choose to display them by their real name. And so if you've got a buddy Joe and he's got some kind of crazy gamer tag, whatever it may be, and you don't recognize that as Joe, now it will just say, hey, that's Joe. And I think that's also kind of a neat thing. And there's a bunch of other stuff, but I haven't had a real chance to go through the announcement. It's not out yet. It's coming in June, but they're kind of pre-announcing it. But it looks like, based on the sheer amount of stuff they're adding, that the June update is going to be kind of a major one. So now I'm kind of looking forward to it. The last one I don't think I got it until fairly late, but I'm going to look forward to getting this one early. I'm really, really curious about the storage stuff in particular, because that was, again, that was a big complaint about the Xbox One.
And there's a June update. We already are seeing some information about that, or
no? That is the
June update. Okay, I got confused. All right, so the one I got,
the May update is not
really
a
it's
lot
the June
going on.
update.
Yeah. It's not really worth discussing too much. Yeah.
Got it. All right, let's take a break. We're going to come back with the back of the book, the tip of the week, the software pick of the week. Mary Jo's got some beer. I'm going to ask what you were drinking yesterday at Rattle and Hum. Everybody was at Rattle and Hum. I saw Ed Bott there.
Yeah.
Yep.
Daniel Rubino came.
Of course. Rubino was
Zarian.
never going to miss a free drink. No, I like to tease Daniel.
Mark Martin, who I called Mike Mitchell for some reason.
That was good.
Two M's.
I have these crazy brain farts.
Easy mistake to make. Yeah.
I feel bad about that, though.
Fun. How many people? Did you get a bunch of people there?
Yeah, we had a lot. Did you see? We got a link up under the first item. Look at all the Surfi. Look at that picture we've got.
Surfi.
Surfi.
Look at all those surfaces. We lined up because we all had our review units, so we all lined them up on one of the bar tables side by side.
Did everybody who go get one?
Yeah.
Wow. Mm-hmm. That's a lot of money. How many people were at the event?
It was a, quote, small gathering, but I bet there were a couple hundred journalists.
Seems like everybody I know went. Tim Stevens was there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Seems like everybody went. There's Mary Jo in the background. So this is not the Microsoft event. This is at Rattle and Hum.
It is.
Right. We turned that place into New York City's first Microsoft store.
We did, pretty much. Yeah. Yeah, even people who weren't in the tweet up were coming by and going, what are you guys looking at? And we were demoing OneNote on the new devices.
Oh, that's hysterical.
Because really, if you're looking for a captive audience, like drunk people in a bar is perfect.
That to me, by the way, is the compelling reason to get this is that whole OneNote integration, the pen, you tap. Yeah. That sounds like a pretty cool thing. I'll go for it on that account.
I'm dying to try it out.
Yeah, me too. You know, it works great on your new Surface. You guys should install it. I install it on every laptop or computer as soon as I get it going. It's Carbonite Online Backup. Carbonite is automatic backup. Whenever you're online, it's continually backing up. So any changes you've made, boom, to the cloud. It's available on all your other devices as well. You can look at, there's free Carbonite accounts for your mobiles and your tablet, and you just look at your Carbonite stuff. There's your stuff. So it gives you access to all your material. It's encrypted on the way up. You can further, if you wish, you can encrypt it when it's up there as well, which means you can have trust no one privacy. That's what Steve Gibson calls it, where only you have the key. Carbonite can't even look at your data. That's really good. That's a nice feeling. I just love Carbonite. I think you will too. And so we've arranged a 30-day trial for you. The way Carbonite works is you pay a yearly flat rate, and it's for as much data as you want. They have the single computer plan, like a single Surface Pro, would be $59.99 a year, less than $5 a month. But they also have plans for external drives, servers, small business. In fact, 50,000 small businesses use Carbonite to back up their data. I want you to try it free. 30 days free at Carbonite.com. You do not need a credit card. Just use our offer code WINDOWS. And it's worth doing because if you decide to buy, you'll get 2 free months. That really makes it a good deal. Carbonite.com. Use the offer code WINDOWS. You got to back it up to get it back. And when you're carrying around a Surface, it's good to have a backup of it. You never know. Bring it to Rattle and Hum. Somebody mistakes it for a beer coaster.
By the way, I did use my Surface Pro 3 as a food tray at Rattle and Hum.
Exactly my point. A little bit of that hamburger grease drips in there.
It's an excellent tray. I mean, I'm just, it's like, it's very solid.
Solid.
It was stunning. No beers were spilled on any surfaces at that event.
Yeah,
kind of
that's true.
Was that picture of the surfaces lined up? Was that taken with the Surface camera, by the way?
I
Well, no,
don't
because
think
the
it was.
surfaces are all in the
They
photo.
were all in the photo. It has a 5-megapixel camera on it. I don't know if you would use that or not. But
Is that what it is? I'm actually not even sure what the camera is.
It's a front and rear 5-megapixel camera. Yeah.
Okay.
Stereo microphones, stereo speakers. I have to say, I think they learned from the first two and they really did it right. This is the Surface. This is
this is the Surface I've been imagining
the
for
one
2
you
years.
want.
You know?
Yeah. Paul Thurrott has a tip of the week. Paulie?
So this tip may sound semi-familiar. I feel like I used this part of this tip one time a year or so ago or something, but somebody wrote me and said, hey, there's this great feature in Bing News on both Windows 8 point whatever and on Windows Phone. And I don't see that you've ever written about this. And I thought, this is crazy. I've definitely written about this. And I looked for it. And what I discovered was that I had written about it in the Windows book, but not in the phone book because those apps are coming in 8.1. But not on my site. And so I thought, well, okay, this is interesting. I need to discuss this. And that is, there's a Bing News app on both Windows now and on Windows Phone, and it's excellent. I actually use it almost every day. You can sign up. You can specify topics you care about. So I use things like Microsoft, Apple, Google, Windows, Windows Phone, et cetera. Those topics sync between your different devices. So whether you're using a phone or a tablet or a PC, whatever, they're always there. And then they have really high quality news sources, including some paywalled services. And you can do things like go into a source like the New York Times, for example, and you could pin that to your desktop, to your start screen on Windows or to your start screen on Windows Phone. And you can, there's a new way to access the New York Times through the Bing app, the Bing News app. Now, why would you do that? Well, actually, on Windows Phone in particular, there is no Wall Street Journal app, for example. But Wall Street Journal is a source in the Bing News app. So you can create your own it's sort of like an app for the Wall Street Journal. It has all the Wall Street Journal stuff. But it also supports the account information stuff. And the two I know about are Wall Street Journal and New York Times. And what that means is you can log into your account and get past the paywall stuff. Because, both of those sites have paywalls and you get a certain amount of articles for free every month or whatever. But if you have an account, you can get in and you can get in through these apps. And so that's true, again, on your Windows PC, on your Windows tablet, or on your Windows Phone. And it's kind of a neat thing. I was actually just playing with that on the way home from New York to test how it worked on the phone because I hadn't really looked at it there, but it works exactly the same way. You can sign into your account. You can pin that thing to your start screen. And now you have a special little kind of a pseudo app for that news source. There is a New York Times app actually on Windows Phone, as it turns out, but there isn't one for the Wall Street Journal. And so that's kind of a neat way to get by that limitation. And so I'll write this up as I'll write this up certainly for the Windows 8.1, Windows Phone 8.1 book, but I'm not sure if I'll do another article about this. But it's just kind of it's one of those things, they update these apps fairly frequently now. They're really high quality. I think people kind of overlook them sometimes. And there's some neat functionality in there if you just take a look at them. And so it's kind of a cool thing that you probably already have and can access. You just didn't even know it was there.
That's great. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a cool one. And then software pick is sort of two here. This week, Microsoft and Ubisoft announced a subset of the mobile game Assassin's Creed Pirates for the web. So it's an HTML5 based game. It uses WebGL. It uses I just forgot the name of it. I forgot the name of it. But
Unity.
It's a JavaScript set of APIs that was created by some guys at Microsoft. And so it's a port of a part of the game. It's one of those kind of
sailing
race,
part, right?
Yeah, the sailing part, right? Yeah. The thing that's neat about it though is if you have a touch device like a Surface or a Lumia 1520. It's touch enabled on those devices, and that's actually where that kind of game takes off because of course this game was made for mobile touch devices like the like the iPhone. And I think this is a kind of a preview of what may become possible in the near future with HTML5. And we think about Windows actually has a big HTML component as part of the core part of the OS. You can create HTML apps for Windows. Obviously, Chrome OS is a completely HTML based operating system. You can see the future here, and it's just kind of an interesting. It's not an awesome game by any stretch of the imagination, but it's the graphics are nice, and you can kind of play with it. And especially again, if you have a touch device, you can kind of see where this is heading. And it's free. It's just something you can check out. And you should. And I just wanted to mention, too, this happened while I was gone, so I haven't had a chance to install or play this, but I'm curiously excited for the new Wolfenstein game, which is called Wolfenstein: The New Order.
Yeah, excited.
Yeah, and this is one of those alternate reality type deals. And so in the history of the game, the Nazis have won World War II, and now it's the 1960s. And our buddy BJ there, the hero from the Wolfenstein games, from the id Software, id Software games originally, is now coming back to take on this, the Nazis 20 years later in this kind of Nazi-controlled alternate history of the 1960s.
That's my favorite part.
Das mein Lieben.
That was the 8-bit version.
Yeah.
So this is not like the original Wolfenstein where you're fighting Nazis underneath a castle. This is they've won.
You're fighting Nazis. And,
but
actually,
they're ruling the world in modern times.
Yes.
Yeah.
There is an Easter egg in the game, I'm told, where you can play the first level of Wolfenstein 3D.
Oh, that'd be fun.
Yeah, I think it's somewhere in the first or second level of the game. So anyway, as soon as this podcast is over, I'm going to download this on my Xbox.
All right. As soon as I can sail this ship out to sea, I will be ready for your next segment.
I find this game to be very difficult to play with a mouse.
So there are other, I was just looking on my 1520, there are other Assassin's Creed game, but you want the race game.
Oh, there are, yeah. So I should say, too, Assassin's Creed Pirates is, I believe, the latest mobile game. It's not on Windows yet as like the native mobile app, but they said it's coming soon. So I believe that this game is, in fact, coming in the full version, the full mobile app version for both Windows and Windows Phone.
Yeah.
But we do have older Assassin's Creed titles, on Windows Phone.
Quite a few, actually, it turns out. Yeah. I can't get out of this game, so you're just going to have to take over, Mary Jo, our enterprise pick of the week.
I'll take over. Today's enterprise pick of the week is a true enterprise pick. It's definitely not something for small businesses or even medium businesses. It's for really, really big companies. But I know we have some listeners who work there.
Sure, lots of them. Yeah.
So the pick is BizTalk Server and BizTalk Services. And what the BizTalk Server is it's called an enterprise application integration server. So it lets you do things like EDI, EAI, B2B connections. If you don't know what those acronyms are, just don't even listen to the rest of my pick. But and the reason I made it my pick this week is Microsoft updated both BizTalk Server and BizTalk Services in the past couple of weeks. So now you're up to BizTalk Server 2012 R2. That's the new version that just came out. And the reason it's important is it adds support for some of the most recent Microsoft products like Windows 8.1, also SQL Server 2014, Windows Server 2012 R2, and SharePoint 2013 Service Pack 1. So before, you couldn't run, if you had these products, you weren't able to work with the latest versions. So now you can. At the same time, Microsoft also updated BizTalk Services with this new feature that's called Hybrid Connections. Way better name than BizTalk Services, in my opinion. But Hybrid Connections is a subset of BizTalk Services, and it lets you connect things that you have in Azure, like Azure websites or Azure mobile services, to data that you have on premises. So it's this kind of a bridging thing that makes hybrid connections. And the best part about hybrid connections, which is out in preview now, is you don't have to do anything to your VPN gateway or your firewall ports. It just works. And Microsoft also added a new free tier of Azure BizTalk services so people could try out this hybrid connections feature. So yeah, if you're a BizTalk user, and there's 12,000 really gigantic companies out there that are, you might want to check out these new releases.
And you might want to check out our code name of the week.
Yeah,
actually,
this
you're
is
going to go
super
back
cool.
to Windows 95?
I am, because you know what? This week's Surface Pro 3 launch reminded me in some weird ways of Windows 95 launch. And I think it was because it was such a beautiful day here in New York. Not a cloud in the sky, just like when it was Windows 95 launch. But Raymond Shen, who works at Microsoft, he's written a book called The Old New Thing, and he has a blog called The Old New Thing. He's worked on Windows forever, basically. He did a post this week on his blog that that is really interesting. He said, did you guys know, everybody knew Chicago was the code name for Windows 95, but did you guys know there were all these subsystems inside of Windows 95 that had their own code names? And some of these I had heard and some I hadn't. He brought up Jaguar, which was a 16-bit DOS kernel. It had its own code name.
Yeah.
Cougar, 32-bit DOS kernel.
Yeah. This
Panther.
sounds like Apple.
It does, right? Panther, the Win32 kernel. And he said, so obviously the team was using cat names.
Yeah.
And then the user interface team used Stimpy because that also happened to be somebody's
Ren
cat's
and
name.
Stimpy. Yeah.
Yeah, he's
Was
like,
Stimpy
okay,
a
so I
cat
guess-
in Ren and Stimpy?
Yeah,
Oh.
yeah.
I
I think so.
Yeah.
I believe
there you
so.
go.
The cartoon cat. Right?
Yeah.
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 Yeah. So
that's cool.
that was kind of cool. It was like a good kind
I
of
think Apple
throwback.
should do
code
that.
name.
Forget Mavericks.
Yeah,
they
they
should have
should.
called it Stimpy.
They should have.
OS 10 Stimpy.
That would have been kind of funny.
That is hysterical. Finally, time for a payback.
Yep.
A payback porter,
Beer
that is. Yeah.
Yes. So we had so many good beers to choose from at our Tweet Up at Rattled this week because it happened to be on the night we were there, Speakeasy night. And Speakeasy is this great brewery in San Francisco.
Oh, yeah.
And they had a ton of speakeasies on. And I tried a bunch of them, but the one I think I liked the best was one I had never had before called the Speakeasy Spiced Payback Porter. And what made this kind of an interesting porter is they used chai, masala chai.
Oh, that sounds
in this.
great.
It was so good. Instead of, a lot of porters, not all, but some use coffee or have a coffee flavor or actually use coffee in the actual brewing of the beer. But this used tea and it came out really nice. I thought it almost had a little sour tinge in a good way. I thought it was very delicious.
Payback porter.
I don't know
from
what
the
Paul
Speakeasy.
tried. He had a bunch.
Boy,
Did he stop
I had
at just one particular kind? I mean,
I had a flight of barley wine beers, which was probably a
No,
mistake by
did
that
you
point of the
really?
evening. But could we please, could you tell us who your friend was that brought me that beer? Because that was
Yep.
amazing.
Yeah. So one of our Tweet Up attendees, Peter Lasanti, came with a little hand-carried cooler of beer for Paul.
how nice.
I know.
Well, yeah,
It was really
and by
great.
the way, okay, but this was not like Bud
Just
Light
any.
lime. I mean, this was this was amazing, and
Yeah.
the
What
reason
was it?
it's
Do you
amazing.
remember what kind it was?
Yeah, I'm looking it up because I put it on Untapped.
Okay.
There were two parts to it. One is you would never be able to find it here, an impossible to find local Belgium brewery, like a
Yeah,
double.
they're called New England Brewing. They're in Connecticut.
No, this is the other one. The bottle.
the other one.
The one
The other
from
one.
Belgium. So there was
Was this
actually
guy
like
Belgian, or he just happened to have this
No.
in his pantry?
He's a beer guy. He's
Yeah.
a fellow beer nerd.
You're a nerd.
I'm trying to find my. For some reason, Untapped is
No, cooperating.
okay, hard to use. All right, so no, it's like okay. I want my activity. Not my
Computers, don't you
friends'
hate them?
I just can't understand technology. Here we go. Okay, so that was so it's Trappist West, Literin Eta, by Brow. What I can't say this. There's a lot of syllables next to each other.
Flemish. I never could live with that.
Absolutely, it was awesome. It was one of the best beers I've ever had. in my
Belgian
life. It
beers
was
are
amazing.
really good, aren't they?
They are.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep, best beers in the world. But the other one, in some ways, was equally amazing. The other one was the one it has the best name ever. The name of the beer is 668, the neighbor of the beast, and,
I love
which is so
That
awesome.
was.
I have never had anything like. Well, I'm sorry, I've had beers like this a lot. It's a Belgian, but it was in a can. I have never had a Belgian in a can, and it was an excellent example of a Belgian. It was fantastic, and it's from, as she said, this brewery is in Connecticut, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, Woodbridge, Connecticut. New England Brewing Company.
Wow.
So both of these beers were absolutely fantastic. I mean, and really special. And I was just really blown away by this.
We are in a golden age of beer making, my friends.
Yeah.
Truly
And I'm in a
amazing.
golden age of beer drinking, which is why I need to take a nap.
We're going to let you go, Paul. Paul Thurrott, he's the host of the Super Site for Windows. Don't expect a lot of posts today. WinSupersite.com. Mary Jo Foley, all about Microsoft.com. And each and every week we gather at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern Time, 1800 UTC on a Wednesday to talk about Windows. And it's always a pleasure. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
If you can't get the show live, you can always get it at twit.tv/WW or wherever shows like this are aggregated. The Xbox store, the iTunes store. And don't forget, we've got a couple of really nice apps on Windows Mobile, on Windows Phone. Dimitri Allen's app is one of my favorites. Just a gorgeous app. And there's a couple others, I think. So just search for Twit in the App Store, and you can add it to your phone on all the platforms.
Being aggregated would hurt.
Well, just depends how much you like other shows. If you're close, then it's okay. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Mary Jo. Thank you all for joining us. We'll see you next time on Windows Weekly.